looking at core function, we can rely on a few key tests just to get a quick idea of whether the client is breathing correctly, whether they have conscious control of their abdominals, and then some training solutions that we can utilize to correct these things. All right, so our first assessment, just to see if the client is breathing correctly, and has proper diaphragm motion, is a simple breathing test we can perform by putting one hand on the stomach and one hand on the chest. I'm going to ask the client to just take a deep breath, fill their belly with air, hold for 2 to 3 seconds, release. I'll ask the client to do this several times, and release. Ideally, you can perform this in front of a mirror so the client can see themselves breathing. All right, if the client is rising excessively, they see their shoulders rising and the top hand is coming up, then they fall under what is called an upper chest breathing pattern. And what that means is they're using the muscles of their chest, really in their traps and their neck, to breathe, as opposed to their diaphragm. What happens when this is the case is that the diaphragm is not moving through their full range of motion, breathing is restricted, and the client's going to get a lot of tension up here. We commonly see this in people that are in stressful jobs or sit at a computer all day. So right off the bat, if that is the case, we know that breathing is something that we want to address in our training. All right, our next assessment would be what is called an active straight leg raise test. Okay, and with the active straight leg raise, I'm going to ask the client just to line their back here, straighten their legs out, okay, bring both legs down, simply raise one leg into the air. Hold for 1 or 2 seconds and come back down. Okay, perform this about 5 times. All right, what I'm looking at are the position of the pelvis, the position of the opposite leg, okay, position of the shoulders and the low back as well. Are any of these areas moving while the client is raising the leg up, or are they staying still? All right, if I see the other leg rising up, turning out, or I see the back arching, that tells me the client's pelvis is not stabilizing correctly. The pelvis might be arching, the client might be in some degree of anterior pelvic tilt, or the deep abdominal muscles are not really controlling this area correctly. So right off the bat, we know that pelvic control, maybe tight muscles are something that we need to work with. But if pelvic position is off, that is something that we need to address with stretching and then with these bracing and breathing progressions that we'll get into in a little while. All right. Thirdly, our next test would be a rotary stability test. So what I'm going to do is come out of all fours, connect one knee to the opposite elbow, and extend out. All right. If the client cannot do this, if the client is wobbling, coming all around, that tells me the client lacks what is called lateral stability. All right. So the lateral structures of maybe their deep abdominal muscles are not firing correctly. We know that again, this is another indicator that their inner core muscles, their multifidus in this case, might not be really up to snuff. And these are some things that again we want to address with our progressions we'll get into in a little while. Our final test to kind of get an idea of whether the client possesses the ability to actively brace is just to ask them to hold in plank. All right, and this is more of at this point, this is just more of an assessment tool as opposed to an exercise. Most clients understand what the plank is, but what I'm going to ask them to do is come on all fours here, simply raise their knees off the ground, and just hold in this position. All right, while a client is holding this position, I'm looking at several things. I'm looking at the position of their pelvis. Is it arching or coming up into the air excessively? And I'm asking the client, where are you feeling this? Where are you feeling this? If the client's feeling it in their low back, in their legs, or in their shoulders, we know that they don't have a good idea maybe of what an abdominal brace is, because ideally, they would be bracing, they would be feeling it in their abs, and that would even be recurring what we call reflexively or automatically. So if the client is feeling that anywhere other than the stomach, we know that they don't have really conscious control at least, of the abdominals. And again, this is something that we want to address with the training progression that we'll outline in this article.